Hi, my name's Tyson. Welcome to Flower Pot Mosaics. I'm going to show you today how to grout your Christmas wreath. So I'd like firstly to say thank you to those of you who came along to my workshops and made a wreath, and those of you who bought a kit from me, and I hope you enjoyed the process of making it. So we are going today to grout it. The first thing you're going to do is check that all the pieces are stuck on. So I always use marigolds rather than the thin ones, just in case you've got any sharp pieces, and sort of give it a gentle tap and tip it upside down. And when you're happy that everything is stuck on, then we can go ahead and grout it. So what you'll need today is some water, a sponge, doesn't matter what size sponge it is, you can use the small kitchen ones, they're fine, and some water in a little cup, and obviously your grout, use an old yogurt pot or whatever you've got that you can just throw away afterwards. Now I must stress that you hardly need any water with this. If you've ever made icing sugar, it's very sort of the same. So what we're going to do, we're going to add little drops of water, and I mean little drops, because I'm always adding too much, and then I end up with having to add grout to it, and I end up with double the grout I need in the end, and it's sort of a bit of a waste. So let's just keep going until we get sort of like a hummus mixture. You can see it's quite messy, so make sure you've got some newspaper or you know, a bin bag you can put on the table. And then we're going to keep mixing it, and you can still see it's quite lumpy, but this stage now is where you can really overwater it, so I can't stress enough. Tiny, I know it's a bit painstaking, tiny bits of water at a time. So a little bit more, it's almost there. You can see how little water I'm putting in. And there we go. So I'm sort of, from experience, I can sort of tell when it's ready. So for your benefit, I would say, think hummus, think toothpaste, that sort of consistency. So keep giving it a good stir. And I'm sort of happy with that, actually. You don't want it dripping off. Yeah, I would say that's quite a nice toothpaste consistency now. Okay, so now we're ready to go. So you've got your gloves on, and you pick up your wreath. Now you do notice that there's a hole in there which your ribbon is going to go through, so just ignore that at the moment. You won't need to worry about that yet. So literally all you're going to do, you're going to, with your hands, you're going to collect your grout in your hands, and you're literally just going to spread it all over your wreath. Now you don't have to worry about what's going on the back, because it'll all clean off. Grout is like a miracle. It just goes where you want it to go and then cleans off where you don't. So you've got a black grout with your wreath. This is actually charcoal I'm using now, purely because I've run out of black grout, but charcoal looks quite nice too, but I do prefer the black with these wreaths. I think it makes all the colours stand out a bit more. So this is charcoal, and the grout I use is, the one I quite like is Mapei, that's M-A-P-E-I, and it's an Italian make, and they do all sorts of colours in it, but I am quite fond of the charcoal and the black. I think it's a lovely grout to use. So there you are. Now the grout I will have given you in your kits, you'll have plenty of it. There we go. So as you can see, I've covered all of it, and I'm sort of with my finger very gently sort of pushing it in. Like that. It's very messy, isn't it? I'm going all around there with my finger, and you can see what's happening on the back. I actually paint mine when I finish. I just get some black wood paint, you know, the little tester pots. I think it just finishes them off. There we go. So I'm happy now that that is all covered up like so. Right, so now we're going to go in with the sponge and the water. The most important thing, when you're wringing out your sponge, you want to get out as much water as you can. I mean, really give it a good old squeeze. You don't want any dripping sponge. You want it sort of as dry as you possibly can get it with your hand. And here we go. So we're going to go over it. We're going to do a sweep round like that. Then turn the sponge over and then do another sweep. And you can see already the grout starting to come off the top of the stiles. I'm going to go in again. Again, give it a really good wring out. And you can sort of see, I'm going to go around the edge now. Like that. Okay, so I'm happy that, or you can, when you have a look at it, you can see where the grout's gone, and you sometimes make sure that everything's uncovered. You know, if you've got tiny, these are tiny tiles, but you just go in there with your sponge and give it a bit of a gentle rub and it'll all come off. So now this is when I'm going to turn it over and I'm just going to get the excess grout off. These wreaths are MDF, and you know the grout does stain them a little bit, which is why I always end up painting them, but you don't have to. It gives it quite a nice shade actually. So I'm just going to go in one more, and you can see the water is really dirty now. There we go. Now what happens, this is a really good example of what can happen when you don't put your tile close to the edge. You can sort of see that the MDF wood is showing there. So there's two things you can do. You can either go back in with your grout. So I'm just putting a little bit my finger and just pop it over like that. And then with your sponge, just pat it gently. And you can sort of see now it's hidden. Or when you come to paint the back, you just paint those little bits of wood that you can see. But grout is very, very forgiving. But if you just gently pat it and not wipe it, then it will cover those bits of MDF or wood showing like that. So I'll just gently pat it around. And then any more, I'll probably just, I'll just put some black paint on it, and you really, really don't notice. But if you can do this with the grout, you spend a little bit of time just popping it on, patting it. It's the same when you grout anything. I mean, I'm grouting this wreath here, but it's exactly the same process for anything you grout, pots, anything. I think that's sort of finished now, and I have one final bit there. I might even just go in one more time. Just a really gentle sweep round. Like that. You might see a little bit of glue at this point, whatever the PVA glue, a little bit on the top, but that all sort of disappears when it dries. Now we're going to leave that to dry, but before we do, remember we've got a hanging hole that we need to put the ribbon through. So if you don't know where it is, turn it over and then you'll spot it. I've just got one of these lovely little dental tools, but whatever you've got that will poke through. So I'm literally just going to just do that with it, just to make sure that the hole's appeared. And the hole is big enough, believe it or not, to get quite a nice piece of ribbon in there. So we're going to leave it now. I'm going to leave it a few hours. You could leave it overnight if you want, or if you're desperate to see what it looks like. Then after a few hours, what you'll notice is it'll start to go all dusty, and what you do then, you just get a wet cloth and you just give it a bit of a wipe and buff it up with a dry cloth. And then what you'll have when you put your ribbon on is something that looks like that. And that's the back. So I've just painted the back, just like that. And then when you're feeling brave enough, you've got enough time, go and buy a giant size wreath like that, and have a go at doing something quite larger. Now what you might notice on this one is the leaves are protruding over the top of this wreath, whereas on the other one it was sort of they reached right to the end. This is purely because when I sell these wreaths or I do kits, I am concerned sometimes you might have sharp edges sticking out, but this one's just for me to hang up. So you can see the difference when you stick the leaves out over the edge rather than they go close to the edge like that. So if you're going to make any more in the future and you buy your wreath yourselves, the MDF wreaths, you can consider making the wreaths stick out a little bit, and then it makes it a little bit bigger. Anyway, so good luck with your grouting. I hope it goes well, and any problems, flowerpotmosaics.co.uk, send me a message. Any questions you might have about grouting, I'm always happy to help. And thank you very much.